Hey, DGL community, thank you so much for joining me for our November series where the topic is simply this: when my faith, it's almost at give upish. The other night at dinner, a friend used that phraseology, and I'm telling you, I thought, hey, that's real talk. Like, I can feel that all in my gut, in my soul. That space of a prayer journey where you're just kind of wondering, like, God, are you ever going to come through for me? Or you can feel some sense of, I'm not asking for that thing. I'm not even going to mention that again. Well, we can rest assured in this: we're not alone. We have faith siblings who did that same space. David said it like this: my foot would have almost slipped. And Mary and Martha, when Jesus delayed and their brother Lazarus died, they asked him, what took you so long? So perhaps we've been there. It's the 11th month of this year, been praying and believing, haven't quite seen the manifestation yet. Well, this Bible study will give us a few tangible tips on how to push through when our faith, it's almost at give upish. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me for our November series, When My Faith is Almost at Give Upish. And we are delving right into Mark chapter 9, verse number 14. It is subtitled, A Boy is Healed. Yes, to that. So that gives us, that subtitle alone gives us the end result. We can already know that the boy is going to be healed. But what is the process to that? So, as I mentioned in the intro, I was at dinner the other night and a friend said that. But here's the thing: she testified about this miraculous thing that God had done in the lives of she and her family, something they have been believing God for years. God finally did it. Like, he showed up in a masterful, mindful of God type of way where your mind registers, this is nobody but God, right? So she shares that testimony, but in the midst of it, she says, but I want you all to know that the faith level was at almost at give upish. Like, thank you so much for giving us the end results, but thank you for empowering us by sharing what the journey looked like to get to that part of the story. So when she said give upish, I was like, yes, girl. I can identify with that space. I understand that. So when we jump into Mark chapter 9, it's with similarity that we can see that it is entitled A Boy is Healed. But y'all, we got to dig into that journey to see how that healing comes about, and we can then better understand why we would include this snippet this snippet of a look into the life of a faith sibling in this whole series of When My Faith is Almost at to Give Upish. Okay. When we start off at verse number 14, when we walk up on the scene, there is a great multitude around, and there are scribes, and they're disputing and they're arguing with the multitude, and they're just talking, and whatever that conversation is all about, that's what's happening. The Bible doesn't specifically say, but we know there are lots of people, and there's a heated discussion happening. And then Jesus enters in, right? Jesus sees the people and he asks the scribes, he asks the teachers of the temple, like, what are you discussing with them? Immediately the attention changes and everybody is amazed that Jesus is there. But then one person from the crowd, he answers and he says, look, pretty much, I don't know what everybody else is up to, what they're discussing, why they are here. But me, teacher, I brought you my son who has a mute spirit. And it's not only that, Jesus, this mute spirit, whenever it seizes my son, so we're at verse number 18, it throws him down, he foams at the mouth, he gnashes his teeth, and he becomes rigid. So I spoke to your disciples that they should cast it out, and they just could not. So we have this parent, obviously, who's in the crowd, who's there with one intention, that my son who is mute, who cannot speak, that's one issue. But then the issue has issues, right? The issues are layered. In addition to having that mute spirit so that he cannot speak, when that spirit gets a hold of him, it seizes him, it throws him down, he foams at the mouth, he gnashes his teeth, and he becomes rigid. Like, Jesus, my issue got issues, got issues, got issues, and they got issues, and I need your help. So I came in this crowd of folk. I brought him here to you. I spoke to your disciples because you weren't here yet. Remember, Jesus is entering the scene. I spoke to your disciples and they can't cast him out. The people who are supposed to emulate you, be like you, do the things that you did, walk in your same faith, in your same power, they could not help me. That's why I'm here. I get that right. This parent wants help for his son, and he has brought him to people who are supposed to emulate and do the things that Jesus did because they are his disciples, but they couldn't help. So then Jesus says, "Oh, faithless generation, how long am I going to be with you?" Meaning, I've already just kind of completed this thing. How long shall I bear with you? Bring him to me. Then they brought him to Jesus, and when he saw him, immediately the spirit convulsed him, and he fell on the ground. He wallowed on the ground, and he began to foam at the mouth. So he turned to the father, Jesus did, and he said, "How long has this been happening to him?" So we're going to go down to verse number 22. The father answers, "From childhood. And often he has thrown him into the fire and into the water to destroy him. But if you, Jesus," somebody say, "But if you, Jesus, but if you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us." Here's where I want you to put a mental note. Verse number 23. This is Jesus' response. Jesus said to him, if you can believe, all things are possible to him who believes. So get that exchange there. The man puts the ball in Jesus's court, and he says in verse 22, "But if you can do anything, Jesus." Jesus puts the ball back in his court in verse 23 and says, "If you can believe." If you can believe. Not you go first, Jesus. You do something first, Jesus, and then I will believe. Jesus is, if you go first, Father, if you believe, then I will do something. Do you see that? The Father is, Jesus, if you can do anything, then help us. Jesus is, no, you believe, then I can do anything. He's not going first in this scenario. We're going first. And y'all know we'll circle back to that, right? Immediately the father of the child cried out and said with tears, "Lord, I believe, but help my unbelief." When Jesus saw that the people came running together, he rebuked the unclean spirit, saying to it, "Deaf and dumb spirit, I command you, come out of him and enter him no more." Not just be healed, stay healed. Then the spirit cried out, he convulsed him greatly, and he came out of him. And he became, the child became as one who was dead. That's in verse number 26. So that many even said, "He's dead." But Jesus took him by the hand, he lifted him up, and he arose. Let's talk, y'all. Let's just talk right there. Jesus took him by the hand, he lifted him up, and he arose. So if you followed me for any length of time on the Bible studies throughout this year, thank you for that. And for those of you who are perhaps joining us for the first time, here is my shameless plug. Subscribe and follow. Visit some of the other Bible studies. But normally in the Bible studies, I give several tips so that we have something to chew on, marinate on, and kind of revisit and continue to apply to our lives. But when we're at this point in the year, the 11th month, and perhaps at the state when my faith is almost give up-ish, y'all, I'm going to just try to find us one really, really good nugget that we can just chew on, marinate on, and do that one thing. We don't have perhaps the energy or the strength to try to do a whole lot of things. So I'm just going to give you like this one nugget today, and I want you just to exercise it. I want us to exercise it as we push through this part of the journey, perhaps in our prayer requests and our prayers where our faith are almost at give up-ish. Verse number 23, Mark 9 and 23, Jesus said to him, "If you can believe, if you can believe." Y'all, it is simply this: believe. Just believe. See, the man says to Jesus in verse number 20, sorry, just lost that. In verse number 22, "But if you can do anything," Jesus' comeback statement to him was, "If you can believe." All things are possible. Basically, if you can believe, I can do anything. But you're going to have to believe. I'm not going to go first and then you get to believe because I did it. You're going to have to believe and then I'll do it. You get that with me? The man says, if you can do anything. Jesus' immediate response to him was, if you can believe. And if you can believe, in verse number 23, if you can believe, all things are possible. If you can believe first, I can do anything. See, there's no questioning that I can do. I'm just going to question if you will believe. So then that becomes our whole takeaway. Like right there, I would say believe. Just believe. So why would Jesus even perhaps use the phraseology of if you can believe? Well, who are we kidding here? Again, here's real talk. If we were to go back and just lean into the passage, we can see multiple reasons, multiple justifications of why perhaps the man would not believe, why perhaps believing would be a challenge, why that would be something that he would have to push through and really lean in to do. If we go back to even the very beginning, we can see where when he's even approaching the scene, there is a great multitude. There's a great multitude of people who have already gathered. And so when we just kind of think about that, when you have an issue and your issues have issues and you roll up on the scene and there's already this great multitude of people, there could have been pride that could perhaps keep you from wanting to press through. There could be an awareness like of how am I even going to get to the front of the line? How am I even going to be noticed? If Jesus is going to show up today, I don't see him, but how is he even going to see me? What would allow my need, my request to even show up on his radar? How am I going to get his attention? There are too many other folk who need stuff too. And my God, in the greater scheme of things, with the world being as it is and society as it is, why would God and all that he has to fix, do, or address even be concerned about me? Like just that, just the sense of I'm dealing with enough. I don't want to have to deal with a whole lot of folk and a whole lot of other issues. That alone could have been a reason for the Father to say, you know what? I'm just going to try another day. I'm just going to go back to the house. I'm just going to just hold out and deal with this situation a little bit longer. But we don't see that anywhere in the passage. There's no point where he turns back. So he sees this great multitude, but he continues to press forward. He continues to believe. He continues to go into the space where perhaps the miracle that he needs today can happen. You all believe. Believe. So then this is what happens. Is that when Jesus comes up and he asks this question, what are y'all discussing? What are y'all all gathered, multitude, and talking about and arguing about and disputing? It says, then one person from the crowd says, teacher, I brought you my son. Basically, like, I'm not trying to speak on behalf of the crowd and why everybody else has gathered and what they're over here talking about and what they're engaged in. I only have this one thing to say, teacher, I brought you my son, because he has a mute spirit. And it's not just that he has a mute spirit. When that spirit seizes him, it throws him down. He foams at the mouth. He gnashes his teeth and he becomes rigid. Teacher, I came here to see you. So he speaks up, right? Again, that could have been a moment where he could have just like shut down, ducked, hid, given up. But he speaks up with some sense of, I still believe that you are the answer. I know that I have a whole lot of issues and my issues have issues and my issues are layered and they're complex and they're one on top of the other. And y'all, again, maybe we can relate with that. Like, it's not this simple situation. The situation has nuances and it has impacts and it has effects and it's just become deep and complicated and convoluted. And how do I bring all of that? How do I bring all of that to Jesus? How do I sort through all of that? Can Jesus even sift through this with me? Believe. Believe. So the Father comes and he puts all of that at Jesus' feet. He says he's mute, he gnashes, he becomes rigid, he foams, he throws himself on the ground. I'm going to give you my issues and then all of my issues, right? Because I believe. I believe. I brought him to you. I love this part. He said, and I talked to your disciples about it, but they couldn't cast him out. I came looking for you. So even in that, perhaps there are other what would appear to be answer solutions of what could have, should have helped us, and it doesn't work, and that would become a reason to give up, to be able to say, I tried that, and then I did this, and then I did this, and none of that worked. All of that can become reasons for us to give up. But I say to you again, believe. Keep believing. So then we're going to jump right down here to verse number 20, Mark 9 and 20. It says, and when they brought him to Jesus, immediately when he saw him, the spirit convulsed him, and he fell on the ground, and he wallowed on the ground, and he began to foam at the mouth. So here we are, we're at the feet of Jesus, and there is this dramatic display by this spirit that does not want to release the boy. He does not want the boy to be healed. And I only emphasize that because sometimes when we are believing in our circumstances, it can feel as if things get worse, as if I'm right here where I thought I was about to have a breakthrough, like I'm right here at the feet of Jesus, and things are intensifying. Things appear to be getting worse. What would I say to you? Believe. Because when that happens, he's at the feet of Jesus. We hear nowhere where the Father says, oh God, let's just go home. I just give up. It can feel that way sometimes, y'all, like I was right on the verge of it, and then something else fell apart. Believe. We're going to push through. I'm getting right here to verse number 21, and it says, so he asked his father, Jesus turned to his father and said, how long has this been happening to him? So here again could be another reason why the father would have challenges believing, because the father says from childhood, and the spirit has often thrown him both into the fire and into the water to destroy him. This has been going on for a while. But if you can do anything, Jesus, if you can do anything, Jesus, if you can do anything, right? So there again could be another reason why he would not believe, because what he has been dealing with, what he has been suffering with, what he has been pressing through with has been happening for a very long time. And perhaps you're putting yourself right there in that space, in those shoes, and thinking, yeah, I can identify with that. Been believing for a long time. So he says to Jesus, if you can do anything, Jesus. But remember what I said earlier. But Jesus says to him in verse number 23, if you can believe. If you can believe. And again, I love this expression. In verse number 24, he says, Lord, I believe, but help my unbelief. For the space where I waver and where I doubt, where I burst out in tears, where I wonder, where I get tired, where I get weary. Father, I acknowledge that I have these areas of unbelief, these parts of my journey where I can get overwhelmed or anxious or a bit worried. I acknowledge that, but I still believe. You all believe. Don't discredit or discount yourself, because there may be moments on your journey where there are areas of unbelief, as this father highlights. He said, Jesus, help that unbelief part, but I do believe. I do believe. I do believe, right? I don't believe in me. I don't believe in the consistency of my faith. I don't believe in the power of my prayer life. If you, because I'm clear about that. I'm clear about what I'm believing in. I believe in you. If it rested on me, if it rested on my devotion, if it rested on my commitment, if it rested on my steadiness, we're in a hot mess. It's going to be a jammed up kind of situation. But I believe in you. We got to get that, because he doesn't say if my faith can do anything, if my consistency can do anything, if my dependability can do anything, if my steadfastness could do anything, if my declaring of the word could do anything, if anything that is associated with me could do anything. He does not highlight that. He says, Jesus, if you. So when Jesus says, if you can believe, then we're clear about what he's referencing. If you can believe in what? If you can believe in me, y'all believe. Believe in Jesus. Believe in Jesus' power to come through, right? No matter, as we go through the story, no matter how many other people are in need of something, no matter how complex the scenario is, if your issues have issues and your circumstances have circumstances, no matter how in depth the complexity of the issue may be, no matter if it feels as if you've been on the point of a breakthrough and you've been at a place of a breakthrough over and over again, but you've never broken through. If you tried other things that should have been able to help, like the disciples. He said, I brought him to the disciples, but they could not help. If you've tried other things that should have legitimately been able to help, but it has not worked, right? I ask you, as Jesus asked you, as Jesus said to the Father, I petition you, challenge you, as Jesus said to the Father, if you can believe. Oh, that one more. And even when Jesus said, how long? If it feels as if it has been a long time that you have been believing, continue to believe. So here's what happens. Jesus then rebukes the unclean spirit. In verse number 25, he rebukes the unclean spirit. He commands him to come out. And then when it looks as if things get worse because the people say, oh, he's rigid, he's dead, Jesus takes his son by the hand, he lifts him up, and he arises. And the father gets to see that thing that he has been believing for years. He gets to see that thing finally come to pass that repeatedly felt as if it was only getting worse. He gets to see the manifestation of the promise that he was counting on, that his son would somehow be killed. It's the reason that he pressed and came. It's the reason that he stood there in the midst of the crowd. It's the reason that he spoke up and said, I tried to bring my son to you. It's the reason that he laid all of the complexities of the situation at Jesus' feet. It was for this thing that he endured the longevity of the process of the journey, the time that had passed from childhood until now. Here is his why. When Jesus took his son by the hand, lifted him up, he arose completely healed, demon free. You guys, when our faith is almost at give up-ish, Jesus gives the challenge right here in Mark chapter 9, verse number 23. He says, if you can believe, all things are possible to him who believes. The Father says, Jesus, if you can do anything, and Jesus says, if you can believe. So that's our tangible tip today. Just this week, when you're facing the hurdles and the obstacles that would almost cause your faith to completely give up, I encourage you, my friends. I encourage you. Let's just continue to believe. That's what I got for us today. I say this at the end and I'll say it again. I honor the greatness in you. The dreams, the visions, the requests, the desires, the plans, the goals, all of it. God put it on the inside of you. I honor that. So I continue to share with the hopes that we will not forfeit, that we will not grow weary. Well, that we will not grow weary and give up, because sometimes we do get tired. We do get in those spaces, but that we would not give up, that we would continue to press, continue to make space for the greatness that's on the inside of us to show out and fulfill purpose in this earth realm. God bless you for the rest of this week. Chew on that. Continue to believe. If you can believe, all things are possible to him who believes. That's Mark 9:23. God bless you. Have a fantastic week. I'll see you next week for another look at another faith sibling who had to press through when perhaps their faith had almost reached give up-ish. Talk to you soon. Take care. Subscribe. Thanks. And share. Bye now.